All right, I have all the connectors installed in the post, the dominoes and the connectors, top and bottom on the right side. Actually, I forgot earlier, I said I'd probably put them into both into the legs, but the connectors mounted in the end of the stretcher for the access holes there. So I had to put those in the ends of the stretcher. Then the upper ones are in the legs. So anyway, no big deal. It works out better that way. All right, so the next thing I got to do is get these things, kind of get it put together. And one thing I've learned from experience is it's hard to have these things, well, especially doing it with one person, hard to have them connected, like laying on the ground and then trying to pick one side up and get them at an angle. So it's not perfect, but I have the sawhorses. I'm going to throw some blocks on top of there and set the apron piece on top, which will leave it a few inches below where it goes. And then picking one end up a few inches, you can tilt the legs a little bit to get it started. The stretcher is always going to be the harder piece just because of the way those angles are cut, and just it's a pretty tight fit, and it's also just not as straight and consistent. So, but I do the bottom piece too. It's better to have that sitting up off the ground. So just to make it easier, I have a couple plywood pieces that I'm using just to make a little base that I'll send with it. So when they're putting it together, it'll be easier. So just like that. And I made that about the same height. I think it's about an 1/8 inch lower than the height of the notches. So I'm going to go ahead and set this stuff up. I got some boards I'll throw across the sawhorses to get the stretcher or the apron piece up. Make it easier. Grab those. Actually, I should put the sawhorse in the right place first. Sawhorses have been used for a lot of other things. They're not quite a little dirty, but still do the job. Actually, just realized I need to set these down and pick that up so it's not in the way. Alright. Pick one side of this up. Pull it across there. And then see if that'll stay. Grab the other side and do the same thing. Move this stuff, get it closer. Oh, I also should have mentioned, this will be good for my sister and brother-in-law to know. Even though I tried to make this all where the dimensions all match, it's symmetrical, everything else, I did label these things. So if you look, maybe over here is the better way. You can see that on the top of there is an A. That way when I started that. And then on the end of here, actually it's on the top of here, I think is an A. So the corners are just labeled A, B, C, and D. So it may fit the other way, but it's not quite an Eli Whitney project, so I'm not sure the parts are completely interchangeable, but it's easier this way, just have it lined up to match. So I'll get the blocks into the stretcher there, and then I'll start putting the pieces together. When I put the pieces together too, I will probably have to use a mallet on the bottom, rubber mallet. When I do, I just put a block of wood on it just so I don't get black marks on the cherry. So, all right. So next I'll pick this up. Put one of these in the reach end. Actually, the X shape works well because it can kind of support the ends of the V on each side. Now I can start sliding the legs in. Make sure my angle shows that side. I'll probably do that first. Yeah. And I'll pick this with me in case I need it. Alright. So I'll slide it in. That one the bottom one doesn't have to come up as much, so I'm going to at least try to get them maybe close. Like I said, I think I made that about 1/8 of an inch less than. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, might need to get the camera to show this. That might be a good idea, because there's another piece that's very important. It can cause a lot of problems, which is when this piece, the connector on the bottom, when that's sliding into the hole here, and the set screw, as you can see on that side, the set screw that's in there, that piece sits kind of loose. And so it's important that that piece where the bolt goes in needs to be not blocked by the connector itself. So, shorten this up a little bit. So if I can see in there, not much white, and not much, I don't know if you can really see the piece that's in there, but let me get a screwdriver or something. That work. Actually, I've got the T-wrench for the set screws. If I put this in there, it should go through the hole where the set screw is. And I can see that it is. Not sure how well this is going to work. I'm going to try. If I look at the under here a little bit. If I look at that, and I stick this in the middle, you can see how that goes back and forth. If it was sticking out way too far, then that bolt would hit the side of the piece the set screw goes into instead of going through the middle. And if that happens, there's just no way to get it together. So it's good to check that on each of the joints before they go together to make sure it's in the right spot. So put this back up out of the way. All right, so I'll check those before so that looks pretty good. That one does too. Okay, so check the same thing down here. And the other thing I maybe should mention is the fact that because these joints have to be done differently with the angled stretcher here on the bottom, the 45-degree angle, the set screws, or the pieces that hold the set screws, are not the same distance from the surface. So these, and because of the thickness of this, these are going to be further back, set back inside, whereas these are going to be closer, the set screw will be closer to the surface, so they're not the same. All right, so try to get this lined up once again. Get that in there. This one, it's hard, you gotta make sure you get the height right. Once you get the very beginning of the wood going into the hole like that, I'm in pretty good shape. So now, actually, since I have a room on that side, I'm gonna go ahead and try and get this one kind of started, and then I can pull the other one closer in. Get my block of wood. Hold this. That's going. To this side. I can tell by how close that is now that it's not hitting that piece inside where the set screw goes in. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty good. So now I'm going to pick this up at the slight angle, get it lined up. Look at that, that works pretty good. Okay, so those are in pretty close, and I'm pretty sure my camera angle is set such that I can see the other side too. Yep. I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. Start with the bottom once again. Slide that in. Pick this up a little bit so it's going to go in the hole. It gets harder on the second side, obviously, because now, since that piece over there, I can't leave the slop, so I got more room to work. Yeah, make sure that set screw piece is in the right place. Okay, looks like I got it. It's blocked in good. I did notice too one day that it's still loose. At one point, I think I had the little block here, the Lex block, was sitting high and holding the board too high. Okay, there we go. That one is kind of tight. I'm going to take it out just so it doesn't cause me any problems now that I've got the pieces started. All right, so I've got that, and then before I go too far, we have to get these to go in too. I can't put one in before I get the other one started. yeah, it looks like it's going through there fine. It's not hitting anything. I learned that the hard way. I was putting it together the other day, dry assembling it, and one of these things, actually I screwed up the set screw, had gotten in too far in. I was trying to pound it in. I bent the set screw and had to just swap out that one little part. Alright, so now, block back. And I try to do them kind of symmetrically, just so they don't get too much of an angle as they're trying to fit together. Of course, the tops are already closer, like, yeah. So we'll still work on the bottoms, which, as I said, is kind of a tighter fit, more challenging. Make sure my, you know what, I wonder, that one might be a little too far in. The other thing I have found is, yeah, that one's too far in, I can tell. That's why that one's not locking in. One useful tool, which of course I don't have with me right now, is a needle nose pliers. Got one from here. I can use that. I can tell that gap there, it's probably just about almost half an inch. That's where it stops when it's hitting this device. So I pull this, get that loosened up a bit. There we go. Now I should be able to move this out a little bit. There we go. And I can tell by looking at the other side. This one I know, I measured it previously. It's less than 1/4 of an inch probably. Yeah, now you can see it popped right together. And this one I'll double check as well on the other side. Yep, now they're far enough in that I know that the bolt is going into the hole. So now I can just tap these together. Do the same on the top. That was pretty tight. Yep. And I like to get it down to about probably a little less than 1/8 of an inch of a gap, because once I'm that close, then that set screw will pull it in tight pretty well. I can get it pretty tight just by tapping it together. Now, we'll see if I can get it. Actually, let me do the other side too, just to make sure it's relatively tight. Yeah, this one needs a little work. And this one. Those are pretty good. And the top is pretty good. Okay. Now that that's tight enough, so I can use the set screws to pull them good. Let's see which one might be a good example. This one might be good. Alright, if I do that, you can see there's a gap there still. I'm going to tighten the set screw. Hopefully on the camera you'll be able to see it pull in. There you go. I can see it from here. Hopefully that shows up on the video. But yeah, once I do that, I'll just be doing the same thing on each of these. So I take some adjustments to get this to, that one's pretty tight as it is, but actually you can see on this on the set screw side, so as I tighten this, it should draw it back together pretty easily. There we go. So you get those, and I'll do the bottom ones at the same time, that way one side gets all pulled together tight. Yeah, and one thing Sharon and I talked about this, but one of the challenges I had was, originally I had this plan where I was going to have those boards that go in on the bottom, the stretcher, have those come in at an angle so that they would just be a flat notch on the leg, and then the board would come sit in there. However, fortunately, I realized soon enough that I had to have those dominoes parallel to the ones above so that everything came together this way. I'm actually gonna build another one of these for my son where it's gonna be multiple pieces so he can carry it easier. So in that case, I'm gonna have the leg will connect with a domino this way and a connector, but then the ones on the top will be this direction and this direction. So it'll be a little more complex kind of putting it together because the things have to merge together from 3 different directions at the same time. However, it will be, I will say, a little easier. The joinery on this one was quite a bit more challenging because of it. So we'll see. I don't know if the way it lined up, if we'll be able to see that one pull together, but it should be close enough that it's gonna. There we go. And this one does stand just a little bit proud, that edge does, but not enough to really notice. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. Originally, my plan was to have the stretcher just be like a big capital I, just a straight beam across between the 2 legs, and then a board that connected those. But then as I talked to my sister and also to my son, since I'm building one for him, we decided it would make more sense to, if we want to put 6 people around it, you can fit 2 chairs on each side if you're using it as a table. With this V design now, it'll work to have another chair on each end, which can be helpful. So pull these together. And I will say, I did a sample joint with these connectors before I started building this, and I am quite impressed with the strength of the joints and the design. Of course, it's from Festool, and Festool does pretty good engineering on all of the tools and products that they sell, so these connectors are no exception. All right, see if I can get that to pull in. All right, and one more over here. There we go. All right, so that's pretty much it. I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I showed it on the camera, but I also put the pocket holes in the sides. You can see them there. And that's designed so when the plywood goes in the top, there's a pocket hole. I think there's 4 on each side and 2 on each end. And then there's 1 and 2 of these crossbars, and that one right in the middle, at the inside of those, 1 there. So the idea is put the plywood on the top, cut it to fit in the notches all around the perimeter in the recessed area, and then put the screws in, the pocket screws to hold it, and then take the granite and glue the granite to the plywood, and it should be good to go. I mentioned that these joints, the connector joints, seem to be very strong, and you can't really tell on the video at all, but I think it might be, if I set this here, in theory this is, a little top heavy. This is all obviously solid cherry. The legs are 3.5 inches square, and then all of the other pieces are 1 3/4 thick and typically 4 inches high. The cross braces in the middle are 3 inches high, or actually 3 1/4, I guess, because of the recess for the plywood. But if I pull these out, and if I push on it, you'll see there's no flex. It feels as tight as if I glued it together, so very impressed with the connectors, as I said. Anyway, I think that's it for the video. And Sharon, for you, if you watch this, if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. And I don't walk through any other details, but I think it turned out pretty good. That's it.